programme. We now move on to further news, and this time from Europe, where Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on Russia today to confirm an unconditional ceasefire beginning on May the 12th, saying Ukraine would then be ready to meet for direct talks with Russia. In a post on X, Zelensky said it is a positive sign that Russia has finally begun to consider ending the war, adding that the very first step in truly ending the war is a ceasefire. A day earlier, President Zelensky of Ukraine received the backing of Europe's major powers and US President Donald Trump for the same proposal. This reaction was followed by a statement from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who proposed talks with Ukraine but remained silent on the 30-day unconditional ceasefire demanded by Kyiv and its Western allies. Speaking from the Kremlin, Putin said he wants talks to begin without preconditions in Istanbul on May the 15th, which is the same city where failed peace talks were held back in 2022. Let's listen in to the Russian president.
Предлагаем киевским властям возобновить переговоры, прерванные ими в конце 2022 года. Возобновить прямые переговоры, причем, подчеркну, без всяких предварительных условий. Начать предлагаем без промедления уже в следующий четверг, 15 мая, в Стамбуле, там, где они проводились ранее и там, где они были прерваны.
We're now joined by Julia Kazdobina, Senior Fellow at the Ukrainian Prism, located in Kyiv. Thank you very much for joining us, Julia, on the programme. This is obviously some positive news, but it is coming out of Russian President Vladimir Putin's mouth. What are your thoughts on the current developments, significant developments that have occurred today in regards to statements about the Russian president hoping to directly communicate with Ukraine?
Well, I mean, I don't really think those are positive developments. On the surface, they look like it, and President Putin is definitely trying to play that he is ready, play the game that he's ready for the negotiations, and tries to blame Ukraine for not wanting peace. But if you look under the surface, his statement that negotiations should start without any preconditions, it actually means that they will continue bombing Ukraine. And actually, as I was preparing to join you online, an air raid alert just sounded, and there is a ballistic threat to Kyiv right now. So they are not planning to stop the war. And although they talk about peace, they talk about negotiations, but they did not change their demands. They still want to get control of those Ukrainian oblasts that they do not even control, that they failed to capture. Also, they want, when they talk about continuing the talks in Istanbul, the demands that they made in Istanbul, they were absolutely unrealistic, and a lot of them concerned Ukrainian domestic issues to which Russia has absolutely no business interfering. And also they demanded basically disarming Ukraine, so reducing Ukrainian army to the size that will not allow Ukraine to defend itself in case of another Russian aggression. So, I mean, on the surface, it looks like it's a peaceful, Putin's readiness to have peaceful talks. But if you look into all the circumstances surrounding it, it's basically, okay, we're going to keep bombing you and until you accept our conditions.
Julia, I do apologise for my analysis. Obviously, it's very easy to look on the outside and see this, see the ongoing diplomatic statements and the press releases and make judgments. But what are the people of Kyiv feeling right now? Obviously, it seems like things have moved very fast since January the 20th, which is when obviously Donald Trump took office, and there seems to be new developments coming in every day in regards to peace talks. What's the feeling in Kyiv? Obviously, we keep getting updates about this, about new plans, about new suggestions, about how this war might end, but from the Ukrainian capital, what is the feeling of the people of the country that's being affected by this the most?
Well, people are actually very tired of the war. There is a lot of hurt, there is a lot of pain, and many people, I mean, young people and those who were sort of the hope of the nation, right? They died at the front line, and so the situation is different from what it was in 2022 when the full-scale aggression started. But people understand that if we do surrender and if we do accept Russian conditions, we are not going to survive the next assault. And if you look at the developments, right, Russia says that it will not accept troops of other countries on the Ukrainian territory. It demands that Ukraine does not have a big army. It demands that Western countries do not supply weapons to Ukraine. At the same time, there are no demands on Russia to stop producing weapons. There are no demands on Russia to give up its alliance with China. So this means that there's going, if the negotiations or whatever peace deal is reached on those conditions and Russia does not intend to change those conditions, then it means it's basically the end of Ukraine and Ukraine's occupation. And we know what Russia is doing on the occupied territories. We know how they torture people and that their torture is a consistent policy. We know how they take children away from families and send them to Russia and send them to re-education camps and turn them in, try to convince them that Ukraine as a country does not exist, Ukrainian identity does not exist. We know how they develop a network of military conscription offices at the occupied territories, and how young people are drafted into the Russian army and how they are trained and then sent to fight the war against Ukraine. And also, we know that they're making threats against countries on the eastern flank of NATO, and everybody seems to believe that Russia will not attack NATO because NATO deterrence is working. But given all the previous developments and given Russian reaction to all the previous attempts to achieve a peace with them, I think we can be pretty confident that if they subsume Ukraine, then they will move on to attack Europe. And so, I mean, when people talk about peace, it's not realistic. I mean, we've been living in this situation for 11 years, and they keep doing the same thing. And luckily, Europeans, those who have been involved in this for a long time, like President Macron, for example, right? He's been involved in this since the first days of his presidency, when it was still Minsk process, and when he was working on trying to achieve peace, he was one of the intermediaries. He has learned his lessons and he understands. And
Yes.
there was a statement from him today that you know, unless there is a ceasefire, there cannot be any peace talks.
Yeah, and Julia, I want to ask about obviously that meeting, that critical meeting in Kiev yesterday between the French, German, and British and Polish leaders with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. How critical was this joint endorsement from these countries in shaping Kiev's proposal? And also, President Trump obviously backs this ceasefire. And so what concrete leverage do you want Washington to apply to Moscow right now?
Well, at this point, of course, it's sanctions because, what's being discussed is sanctions on Russian oil industry, also Russian banks, and also sanctions against the so-called shadow fleet, right? That's those things that allow Russia to generate income that then goes into fueling further aggression against Ukraine. And those are critical things. And also it's critical that European countries are getting ready to have a contingent on the Ukrainian territory, which will serve as a deterrent to further Russian aggression. Because if Ukraine is disarmed, I mean, Russia will definitely continue because there are no limitations placed on its weapons production or its militarization when these so-called peace talks are taking place.
Julia Kazdabina, thank you very much for joining us on the program. We now move on